study for France, so we looked at the French consumers, and France, like Italy, is very famous for fashion, and so we wanted to see how consumers in France will feel about wearables. And wearables at the moment are in a difficult point in the market. They're very early on in the market, and there's a lot of work that the vendors still need to do to understand what makes the consumer want to go and buy wearables. If you look at some of the numbers that we publish, the first thing you see is that men more than women are attracted to wearables today. And I think the main reason for that is that the design of these devices, I have a Pebble on me today, are still very man-focused. The design is really more for either a technology consumer or kind of watches like you've seen here at Mobile World Congress that a man would watch, like a scuba dive watch or a watch that has GPS. So majority of the consumers are men. They're also younger. So if you look at the demographic, is the 25 to 45-year-olds that are interested in these devices. Younger generation, not as much. If you look at the type of wearable that they have, the younger generation is the one that is most daring, that they try new things, and so glasses, for instance, come up more with younger consumers, and smart fabrics. So the idea of having a t-shirt that tells me my heart rate is also something that comes up with the younger generation and with women. What we've seen in the US and the UK, similar to France, is that consumers don't really know what wearable technology is. So if you look at France, for instance, we asked the consumer that wear a normal watch if they wanted to buy a wearable device in 2015, and 65% of consumers that have a normal watch said they will not buy a wearable. In the UK, it was similar. The great majority of consumers, more than 50% of consumers, said they're not interested in a wearable device. US, there's a higher degree of knowledge of what a wearable device is, but still not a lot of interest in spending money. The other interesting part, if I look both at France and UK, is that in France, most consumers are not interested in spending more than 150 euros, and in Great Britain, it was not more than 100 pounds, so $150. So the idea that you see is that for the vendors, the difficult part is driving value. Consumers might be interested if they understand the concept, but they don't want to spend money on them. The first thing you see is where they need to concentrate. If you look at the chart, 38% of the consumers that we interview are happy with the watch. The glass, not so much. I think is much more intrusive because it's on your face. The watch is a bit more hidden away as part of what you wear. The three things that, in my opinion, are needed for vendors to be successful: the right price, a good design, and a unique use case. You need to give consumer a reason to buy. So if the design is very good, I might just want it because it's a good piece of jewelry. Even if it's not very smart, I want it because it looks good. That's a little bit what Apple is doing, that their device is smart, but it's also very elegant. So they opening up their opportunity to go to a wider audience that might not be as technology advanced, but like fashion. The other thing is I need to give them something that they want to use. It needs to have an application that is very important to me. At Mobile World Congress, I've been measuring my steps a lot, because as you know, you walk a lot during the day. So being able to count my steps in a more accurate way than not with my phone, which is not always on me, is important to me. So that's maybe why I would buy and spend money. And the last one, the price needs to be right. If the design is not good enough, or if I don't see a good use, I'm not prepared to spend money. If you get design or a use case right, the price doesn't matter anymore. I think 2015 is going to be a very key year for wearables. Vendors really need to invest in getting the three things I mentioned, so price, design, and use case right. if you look at the names that our consumers mention the most, as when we ask, when do you think about wearable, which brand? Apple, Samsung, and Google. The big names that have a lot of investment in the moment in the mobility space overall, that really need to invest in giving that value to the consumer. For me, if we meet next year and you ask me to comment on the wearable market, I would want and hope to be able to tell you that the usability of these devices has increased, and that it's also become less obvious. So a lot of the things that wearables need to do is to drive value in collecting information and then sharing information with the companies and applications and services that I want them to share information with. So I think it's going to become from more of a step counter or a notification screen to really be like a safe or a way to collect data and then drive more value in my life.